Today, we're going to be talking about sampling and how we know how frequent or how significant beliefs and behaviors are. Remember the photo of Harry Truman where he's holding the newspaper saying Dewey defeats Truman. That was probably a case where there was a poor sample, and certainly probably also that maybe they should have collected that information in a different kind of way. The article by Natalie Dean that I've asked you to look at is talking about ways we can track infections, particularly during periods where people don't necessarily go to their doctor or the hospital to say that that they have COVID, and where they might be underreporting an infection. One way that we can do it is to monitor wastewater and look to see, what kinds of things are in the water. We can, ask, look there, but we're also interested in who gets ill, because not everybody does get ill. You and I know people who have had COVID a number of different times. And yet, at this particular point in time, I've never had COVID. So it's not always, we're not necessarily just looking at who or what frequency there is, but who gets ill. So sometimes we're going to be asking for a random sample of the whole population. And today we're going to be looking, today and in the next video, we're going to be looking at random samples a fair amount and how that may be helpful in terms of answering kinds of questions. So our representativeness matters. This photo is from Taylor Swift's video, Blank Spaces. And in parts of the video, she is calm and quiet. And in other parts, she's not. And where we sample, when we sample, matters. And certainly our sampling conclusion should somehow indicate that there are times that the character that she's playing is calm, and sometimes the character is not. Now, one of the biases that we need to be thinking about is that people are not so good at responding to survey research. In this particular cartoon, the speaker says we received 500 responses and found that people love responding to surveys. But who is responding? Is this a sample of everyone, or only those people who are actually completing the bin or completing the survey rather than throwing it in the bin? And probably with this is a biased sample in one way or another. And sometimes we're going to see that even when people report the results accurately, that newspapers and magazines misreport them. So in this article by Baker, she writes, our research finds that people are really interested and supportive of an over-the-counter model of abortion care. They perceive it to have the advantages of being safe, convenient, affordable, and private. The survey found that 83% of abortion patients were in favor of over-the-counter medication abortion, significantly larger than the 37% reported in a 2017 nationally representative sample. Let's stop for a minute. Do most people want over-the-counter abortion pills? Certainly most people who were also abortion patients do. But that's not necessarily a nationally representative survey. And so we're comparing apples and oranges here. So they have this frequency claim, right? The Biggs et al. Study may be nationally representative of people who are using abortion, who are abortion patients. That doesn't mean that we can generalize to the population as a whole. And I think while Ms. Baker wrote this article correctly, whoever did the headline got it wrong. And the 2017 article was nationally representative, but may not have really responded to the kinds of questions and to the kind of people who might be particularly interested in looking at abortion use. So partly we need to be thinking about who is our population. Is it everyone in the US, all women in the US, all women who are of childbearing age, all women who say that they might use an abortion? Those are different populations. And then from there, we want to be thinking about a sample. Are we going to be assessing all 350 million US citizens? That would be a census. Or are we going to take some smaller amount? And from what population are we interested in? So that population of interest is a very useful kind of question to be asking about, particularly in the study that we were just looking at. Now, there are going to be a number of different kinds of words that are used here. When we're talking about something having external validity, we're going to be saying it's unbiased, or that it's a probability sample, or a random sample, or representative sample, as opposed to when there's unknown external validity, we may say it's a biased sample, or non-probability sample, non-random, unrepresentative. And we need to be thinking about those more carefully. And you're going to find a number of examples, number of sample problems that are asking you, is this a random sample or representative? So if we're looking at this CDC data, looking at drug overdose deaths, you see that drug overdose deaths have increased across time in the US. Is this a sample or a census? And how would you know the difference? So go back to your definitions. Think about, what is the population of interest? Is it everyone in the US? Is it only of people who are abusing drugs? And finally, we're going to ask, is this biased or unbiased? And how might we know? Now, biased samples are those where we're including some sort of technique that changes the sample in some sort of way. So for example, when we're looking at college students, a biased sample would be choosing students from my classes. Maybe my classes are not representative of psychology majors across the country, or even of college students or people throughout the country. A random sample of students throughout the country would be more unbiased. Think also about how we might have biased sampling, for example, of political views. And there are some survey groups that are known for being unbiased and getting representative samples, and others that are not. And so how are we going to go about doing this? So I'm going to stop here, and we'll continue in another video. Take care.